All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I've got a topic that I think is incredibly important for a lot of players out there who are wondering, what in the heck do we do with our arms from the top? So I'm going to give you my perspective and what I like to see and why I like to see it, because I think there's a lot of information out there that says, don't use the arms, don't pull down. And I really think when we look at it right here, the more and more I go into it, is I think the arms are actually a pretty big speed lever. Now, there are directions that we can create force. We have counterbalances that we need to understand in the golf swing. So we're going to cover some of these. I'm going to give you a drill that I like to use that I think is a really good speed drill, but also a really good planing mechanism. We're going to dive pretty deep into what the trail arm does and what it can give us the ability to do from a beneficial standpoint, something that I think we see out of the best players in the world. So first things first, like when I go into, I have this lesson more often than I'd like to, and I think a lot of it is just due in part to people not quite understanding the shoulder joint, okay? So a lot of times when we see players in internal rotation, this would be internal rotation, this is external rotation. When we see players getting into internal rotation and they pull the golf club back behind them, that shortens the radius. So now when we create a downward force and a pull, that is coming more from the lead arm that is shortening the radius even more, which is what causes a lot of us to maybe think and say and see that we come over the top because of that. I personally think it starts from the setup position so that we can actually start to educate the directional movement of where the shoulder and the elbow can move in relation to what the golf club does and how it transitions. So the first things first, when I get into this is internal rotation parallel to the ground. External rotation would be perpendicular to the ground. So I'm a big believer. I like starting players off in external rotation like I'm doing a bicep curl, okay? So I'm right in here. I'm in a bicep curl. Now, as I work this arm back and around me, I'm okay if there's a little bit of up. I'm okay if there's up. But we need to keep this shoulder position in external rotation. So if I was at the top like this, I would be able to bring this back in front of me and I can see that I've still stayed in external rotation. Because what this gives me the ability to do now is create a lowering mechanism. So the right arm, it folds up, so it bicep curls up. So as it bicep curls up, the opposite of that on the downswing would be a reverse bicep curl. So it would unload this way. So when we look at this from a down the line perspective, as I get up to the top, as I lower the arm right there, one, there's not nearly as much change in what the face is doing versus going up here in internal rotation and doing this right here. There's a lot of change in relation to the club face and the shaft. I always refer to the shaft as the path. There's a lot of change in there. And then as a reaction, we have to change a lot of the directions that we have to twist and apply force on the grip. Some players do this great, and they're really good ball strikers. For the majority of us out there, I think there's an easier way to do it. So when I go up to the top right here, and I'm in external shoulder rotation, there's a lot of added benefits that I would see out of lowering and creating a downward force from the trail arm. One, you'll see this from face on. This is a widener. This keeps me wider. That gives the club more time to swing, and it also gives the club more time to get back to where the golf ball is. First is if I'm in internal rotation and I pull down with my lead arm, now I don't really have a whole lot of time right here because this golf club, I've shortened the radius so much that I'm having to just do something in manufacturing just to be able to create a strike, okay? Just to be able to create a strike. And most of us, for the strike, we choose a swing direction that goes too far from out to in, okay? Just to make contact there. So the right arm, what I want to see you do is you're in external rotation, work it to the top, make sure the elbow is still pointed up. And the first thing that I want you to do is bring this down, straight down to P6, shaft parallel to the ground. And I would bring this down to where my right arm is fully extended, and you can see this alignment stick I have in front of my feet, halfway between my feet, halfway between the ball. That golf club is still inside of this. And I would rehearse this a couple of times, because how this works in our favor, I think, from a speed perspective, is now we have the ability to counterbalance force and directional movements. Now I'm going to have the ability, and I'm going to be encouraged to be able to move pressure forward more, which creates more of an elasticity or more of a stretch with directional movements. My right arm, as it's lowering, is a backwards and a downward movement, so that I can start moving forward and upward. That would be a counterbalance of force right there. If I get everything going the same direction at once, because generally a left arm pull would be down and forward, where the right arm would actually be working it behind us. So when I hit a ball right here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. There's my feel, and I'll do this slow enough so you can see this. I'm going to lower my arm that way. That right there was a pretty darn good strike. Do that again one more time. I'm going to swing this up. 1, 2, 3. Now this is what's going to encourage me to get pressure forward, then give me the ability to rotate or move to my finished position better, now that I'm using the right arm as more of a lowering mechanism. So I'd be here. And that strike right there, to me, doesn't get much better, and that ball is about as straight as I could hit. And we can see from face on, my low point is definitely forward, because now as this is lowering, this is also what is encouraging my pressure, my pelvis, to actually start to move forward and to extend. That way it's not as manufactured. It's a counterbalance right there. I think that's a really important piece to understand. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple drills that I like to use, how I would check this, and how I would encourage you to practice it at home. All right, so one of the first places that I would go into is I would make sure that I have something from a tool perspective that gives me the ability to feel what external rotation is. I'm a huge fan of the Tour Striker Smart Ball, because that makes me stay in external shoulder rotation. If I go into internal rotation, so you'll see this as I make a backswing. If I go into internal rotation, that ball is no longer traveling with me. So I can go all the way up to the top, and I can work this down. You can see I'm actually applying pressure to this ball and squeezing it more. Again, that is going to encourage me to apply more pressure forward. So the first place I would say is, in order to get the lowering mechanism correct, we probably need to make sure that we have the shoulder joint in a pretty good spot. Now, this isn't to say that we aren't going to see some players that are very good at going from internal to external in the downswing. I see a lot of great ball strikers that do that. But I'd also say that I see a lot of poor ball strikers that go from internal to more internal. So internal to more internal, which now starts to shift the swing direction kind of in a manner that we don't want it. So I would take this Tour Striker ball, I would work this to the top. Now I would feel my downward movement right there. So I'm going to stop this at P6. And then I can see from a face-on camera view, you can see that the butt end of the golf club here would be in line with the golf ball. That would be a very good checkpoint. If I never moved pressure forward, that would be back behind the ball. So I need to have enough pressure forward that I can move to where my horizontal or my linear movement is helping me to drive the grip handle forward so that now when I unload it, I'm unloading this golf club as it's moving to a straight line. I'm unloading this with shaft lean. So it's a sequence piece as well for us. So I'd go up here with the smart ball. 1, 2, add my pressure forward. There's my feel. And then I'll let it go. And again, that to me felt like a really good strike. This is an area, everybody, that I've had to work on personally myself quite a bit. And it's one of the tools that I'd say has really helped me out in regards to this. Now, the next tool that I would say that I like to use is I really like to use an alignment stick, because this is also going to show me how I can create more force and more speed so that I have the ability to create better counterbalances with my pressure moving forward. So I think I've done a video on this before. I'm just going to relate it more now to what we've talked about in regards to the right arm and the trail arm structure. So this alignment stick you're going to see is probably a little bit whippier than what yours might be, but this is just for a demonstration purpose so you can see what's happening from a force perspective and how we're actually using the trail arm and the straightening of it to transfer energy from the body into the object that we're holding, which would be the golf club. So I'd hold this split grip. I'm about hip width right here. Left hand on top, right hand under. If you're left hand, lead hand on top, trail hand under, okay? So from here, I'm gonna swing this up to the top. And with this relationship, this line that I have on the ground, I'm going to rip this down and I'm going to try and stop it to where it's at P6. When this is performed correctly, we should hear a pretty loud noise. And we'll notice this, the more that we look at three-dimensional data of good ball strikers, a lot of their hand speed is moving fastest. And I think people misunderstand hand speed with arm speed. So I'm just going to say our speed initially, a lot of our speed right there is coming from P4 down to about P5.5. So right in this area is where we're actually seeing a lot of times some of the fastest hand speeds out of longer players and longer hitters that play the game. So here's our demonstration. We would be here. I'm going to do this 3 times, then we'll grab a club and we'll hit. So I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to stop it right there, and you can see how my right arm, my trail arm, is straightening, and you can see the give there. You can see the give, and that's me transferring energy into this object versus me pulling it into me, which isn't really doing anything. So that's a lead arm pull into me versus a trail arm straightening. So I'm here, and I'd stop. And I'd stop so you can see the amount of give and the amount of energy that I've transferred into this alignment stick by the unloading of the trail arm, not the pulling forward initially of the lead arm. Then what I'd say is we would do 3 to 5 of those, grab a golf ball, and we're going to produce that same feel. Stop. And I can really feel how engaged my feet are, my legs are, I'm into the ground. It's like I'm waiting to kind of pounce on the golf ball. Again, we're creating counterbalances. So I'd go here, down once, and let it go. And that again was an absolute phenomenal strike. I love how far forward the low point's getting. The golf ball is very compressed. And this is something right here that is enticing me and giving me the okay to move my pressure forward as the trail arm is starting to lower the golf club. A lot of benefits inside of how the trail arm structure works. So hopefully this is a little bit of an insight, gives you a little better understanding of what we want to do, why we want to do it. This is my own personal take on it. Not saying that this doesn't work. I've just found and I've seen better results teaching it this way than the other way. So let me know if you have any questions on this. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. We'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this video here. If you haven't, please click that subscribe button. You can also click the bell right there, and that's going to notify you every time that I release a new YouTube video. Also, if you haven't, check out that last video that I did. It's right here, pinned to the screen. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave those below, and I will make sure I get back to each and every one of you. So, thank you again. Appreciate your support. We'll see you next time.